briefly, my name is Bill Goodman. I'm a civil rights lawyer here in Detroit, and I've been doing this kind of work for well over 50 years. So, with that perspective, I can say this. As one example of the kind of work that I've been involved in the early 70s, somewhere between 1972 and 1974, we filed a lawsuit against the Detroit Police Department unit known as Stretch, Stop the Robberies, Enjoy Safe Streets. And that was a unit which literally killed dozens of unarmed black men as they were fleeing or running away unnecessarily. And there were huge protests over this. Those protests went on unencumbered, and they were vibrant and important. And in the end, that was what stopped the stress unit in the Detroit Police Department. I have never, in the decades over which I've been practicing law, never seen this department go out to literally silence speech and protest which involves the police department itself. It's naked, it's blatant, and it has to be stopped. That's all I have to say.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? My name is Kaylee Arnold. I'll spell that for you. It's C-A-Y-L-E-E, and Arnold is A-R-N-O-L-D. I was present at the occupation that took place last weekend, from Saturday evening, August 22nd, through early Sunday morning, August 23rd. And I'm also a plaintiff in this lawsuit. If you've seen any of the photos taken by Adam Dewey that were posted in the Metro Times, I'm the individual being pepper sprayed in the face while the police officers hold me on the ground. When the occupation began, music played, people were freestyling on the microphones, bubbles were floating up into the sky, there was dancing, there was laughter, and it was beautiful. Needless to say, the night ended in terror. Without any discernible calls to disband, Detroit police officers lined up in full riot gear across from protesters. As DPD began their terrifying advance, beating their shields, Detroit Will Breathe began to chant, "We don't see a riot here. Why are you in riot gear?" DPD then deployed tear gas and what appeared to be a flashbang. I was immediately grabbed by the shoulders and thrown to the ground by an officer. I stood up, disoriented, only to be knocked down again, and upon standing up and starting to stumble towards the intersection of Woodward and John R., I was then shoved from behind by a shield several times. At this point, I tried to lift my hands and shout that I was trying to vacate the area. I was then struck in the legs with a baton. The blows hit the sides and backs of my left knee and the backs of my thighs. The bruises are still there. I did not fall, as I assumed was the intention of striking me in those areas that would cause my legs to buckle. I was subsequently tackled to the ground where several officers held me down and pepper sprayed me long after I was already detained. I remember in the moment wondering why. Why was I still being pepper sprayed even though I was face down, hands pulled high behind my back, and could quite literally feel a great amount of weight on my back? The fact that I was able to string together such a thought while still being pepper sprayed shows you how long it was happening. I was pepper sprayed for so long, in fact, that once I was able to speak, I had to ask an officer to remove my face mask because it was soaked in pepper spray. I did have goggles on, but they were rendered completely useless due to the sheer amount of mace that was aimed directly into my face. I heard wails and screams of pain that night that I will not ever forget. I watched medical attention be denied to an individual writhing on the ground in pain. Officers serially misgendered detained protesters. Once I could finally open my right eye enough to take in the scene around me, I truly felt like a zoo animal as I sat on the curb, and the officers milled about on Woodward with their weapons, armored vehicle, horses, shields, masks, helmets, and vests. I saw officers smiling. They looked triumphant. I watched them give each other fist bumps and bro hugs, and they did handshakes like the kinds you have with your friends when you're in grade school. What happened to me is not a unique occurrence, and I really want to highlight that. In fact, what I experienced and witnessed is exactly why marching day in and day out has been so important to me personally. No human being should have to experience what occurred last weekend. Thank you.
Hello, my name the first day of protests, hoping for the best. I didn't think on that very first morning, as I filled my baking soda water bottles, that we'd all still be out here, nearly 100 days later, still filling those bottles and preparing for the worst. Now knowing that we will get the worst every time in terms of the brutality shown by the police. I remember writing a small essay to my parents after only days of being out there, explaining why I was still coming out and why I would continue to be on the streets. I recently had to have a conversation with my parents that paralleled that first one, though this time I felt their hearts break as they finally understood, because this time it had been their child in the emergency room. The truth is that my skin color is a blanket privilege I have, and growing up, my mom didn't have to worry every time my brother or I went out late in a way that a black mother would. And that's why I'm still out here, and why they are finally understanding what it's like to fear for their child's life every single day. On July 10th, I came out with many others because a kid younger than me had been executed by the police, Hakeem Littleton, and we wanted an explanation. The only explanation we received was a line of riot police advancing on the community, licking their lips at the thought of conflict. I tried to help up a friend who went down before I was screamed at and pushed so forcefully that the back of my head bounced back up from the pavement. I know I was trampled from the bruises on my chest as the rest of the riot line moved forward through us, though I had blacked out momentarily. My concussion was so bad that I was throwing up and given shots of painkillers and pills to take, and a prescription for an anti-seizure medication. And I know mine wasn't even a standout case. Saturday the 22nd was another big example of the brutality and force DPD shows towards the people they are supposed to protect. I was grabbed and brought down almost immediately after the line moved in on us and dragged on my back, by my feet, down Woodward. I tried to protect my face and head, though still came out with bruises and scrapes all over my body and around my eyebrow with cuts on my nose, my already concussed head throbbing in pain. The abject cruelty shown that night was not just seen in the streets, but also while in the yard of the Detroit Detention Center. Many people know me as the kid who passes out water and snacks during the marches, so when an officer came up with a bag of snacks and asked if I wanted some, I thought it was ironic. He thought it was even funnier when he turned around laughing that they weren't for me. They didn't even give us water. They waited until the morning to go out to those who were waiting outside for us to be released to ask if they have any for us that they could bring in. They couldn't even give us their water, let alone bring us inside. The sun came up and our skin was burning, not only from its rays, but also from its reaction with the chemicals used by the police that still soaked their bodies from the night before. The amount of brutality I've seen by the police on these streets is something that haunts my dreams. Some nights I wake sobbing because I see the brutality and injuries of my family and friends go a step further. I see a friend who was beat down in real life not get up after a baton to the head, or another thrown from a moving police car so hard that they lie there motionless, our medics unable to revive them. I know these nightmares aren't even far out, because with the amount of force and tactics used on a bunch of non-violent protesters, somebody could die. If officers can fist bump and laugh and congratulate each other after inflicting this pain on us, what are they doing while brutalizing the rest of the Detroit community? More specifically, those black and brown lives who don't have the rest of this movement watching from right beside them. Black lives matter. And while all lives should matter, the reality is that all lives don't matter if all lives don't matter. This is an inclusive all, as this is not an exclusive movement. It's a movement built around radical love, and I'm so thankful for this family.
My name is Alex Anest. That's Alex Anest. But when I am dressed, as you see me now, I'm known as Lee B. I am a street medic with the 313th Care Collective, and I should not be up here speaking. This is a Black Lives Matter movement, and it's critical that we elevate black voices. As a white person, I view my role as one of support. That's why I like being a street medic. We work in teams to make sure that everyone who comes out in support of Black lives is safe. We keep people hydrated. We are here if someone passes out from the heat. We treat people for minor scrapes and bruises, and when there is violence, either from police or from people in cars trying to run over law-abiding protesters, we treat them for more serious injuries. I personally have been involved in treating people who have been maced, tear gassed, assaulted, hit with cars, and bitten. Why am I out here in the streets of Detroit 2 or 3 times per week? Is it because I am an outside agitator who wants to cause chaos in the streets? No, I'm here because I believe in a future where racial equality is real and not just a story that white liberals tell each other. I want a different world where police don't have free rein to terrorize people of color and minorities. I am here to keep this movement safe, and I am not here to elevate my own voice. I am here to do my part so that other people can be heard. You see how I am dressed. This is the uniform of a street medic. And any police officer can see that we are street medics when we come out in the streets and dress like this. We wear this white shirt and use red tape to mark ourselves with crosses so that we are easily recognizable. If someone needs something, they come to us, whether it's water, snacks, a Band-Aid, or anything. And we stay out of the action. We don't want to be injured, because if we get injured, we can't help others. So when the crowd was all together and cops were closing in on them, on Saturday the 22nd, my partner and I were not there. The police actually got to us first and destroyed the triage area we had set up. They threatened to arrest us if we didn't leave, but we were standing on the sidewalk doing nothing illegal and we stood our ground. And then we watched in horror as the cops moved down the street and tear gassed the people we try to keep safe. We gathered what supplies we could and moved in closer to start treating the wounded. I thought I was about to spend the next half hour rinsing people's eyes out and moving them to safety. But as I got closer, I realized that I was walking into a war zone, or perhaps more accurately, a zone of illegal assault on police by police on peaceful citizens. All around, people were on the ground with cops on top of them. Some were being beaten, some had already been beaten and were being cuffed. There was screaming and crying and tear gas everywhere. Suddenly, my partner and I saw another street medic being beaten by police officers. She was trying to get away while they hammered her with blows from their batons. As I watched, one of the officers picked her up and bodily slammed her to the ground. This is a woman who I march with regularly. Why were these police attacking a street medic? What reason could they possibly have to harm her? I did not ask myself these questions as I watched her hit the pavement. I didn't ask myself anything. I ran to her side and started trying to help her back to her feet. As I reached her and was attempting to help her up while at least 2 so-called peace officers continued to beat her, the one who had thrown her down began to strike me with his baton. I felt the first blow or two and they hurt, but I was too occupied with trying to help my fellow medic. But then something happened that forced me to stop. The man with the baton who had sworn to protect and serve hit me in the back with the full force of his considerable strength. In one blow, he cracked my rib and collapsed my right lung. I screamed in agony. I could barely breathe, but I didn't let go of my friend until the cop ripped my hand away and dragged me across the pavement. There is a lot more to this story, but as I was marched across the street to sit on the curb with the other prisoners, I noticed that all but 2 of the medics had been arrested. We stay out of the fray, yet somehow we had all been assaulted and taken into custody. In my non-medic life, I am a guitar teacher. I once had an older student who had been a combat medic in Vietnam. Isn't that a dangerous job? I naively asked him one day. He told me that the enemy would often target medics. If you can kill the medic and then wound a few soldiers, that can completely incapacitate a unit pretty easily. Of all the medics that I knew, I'm the only one who came back, he told me. On August 22nd, Detroit police used that tactic in an attempt to incapacitate this movement. They targeted medics and then wounded as many protesters as they could. The thing is, we're civilians, not soldiers, and these are our streets, not a battlefield.
Good job.
My name is Jae Bass. I'm an organizer with Detroit Will Breathe. I'm a Detroiter, I'm a father, and I'm a black man. Since the beginning, my black life has not mattered in this country, in this state, and even in my very own city. For 25 years in this city, I've been profiled, discriminated against, and made to feel uncomfortable in my own neighborhood. These injustices come at the will of a system that's created to keep blacks impoverished and displaced, and it comes at the hands of government officials and police departments everywhere. In my city, Detroit, Michigan, the blackest city in America, I have a black police chief that doesn't care about my black life. And that's been proven time and time again over these past 30 days. Over these past 30 days, the Detroit Police Department, I'm sorry, not even 30 days, 3 months, 90 days, plus almost 100. Over these past 3 months, proven that they don't care about black lives, because the past 3 months, we've been pepper sprayed, tear gas, shot with rubber bullets, brutalized citizens with shields and batons and closed fists. They tackled us, put us in chokeholds, knees on necks. Over these past 3 months, I've been arrested 3 times, brutalized 4 times. And I got ran over by SUV at least one of those times. And the only crime, ironically, that I've committed that warranted this amount of police brutality and police misconduct and unnecessary force, the only crime I've committed is being out here protesting police brutality and police misconduct and unnecessary force. That's the only thing we've done. And they marched down on us with hundreds of officers in riot gear, riot police who's trained and prepared to inflict pain on anybody out here standing up for black lives, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that we live in a world with so much inequality and injustice, and anytime we stand up or speak out about it, we're penalized, we're beaten, we're detained. We won't be silenced anymore. We won't back down. We won't kneel. We won't be submissive to the system anymore. And if that makes me a criminal in James Craig's eyes, then so be it. But I won't continue to sit back and stand around while my people are getting lynched. We gotta fight. It's time to fight. Detroit Will Breathe is not the movement. It's an organization. The movement is the movement for black lives. The movement is the movement for black liberation, true freedom for all. The movement is a movement for accountability and transparency. No more senseless murders and killings justified by a badge. We have to do everything we can to dismantle the racist plot against black lives. And that racist plot against black lives is being upheld by DPD. So we need to limit their abilities ourselves, because obviously Craig, he doesn't have any morals, he doesn't have any boundaries. We know that his allegiance is only to the paycheck and not with the people. So if it's gonna be real justice, we gotta make that justice happen. We need to literally make it illegal for Craig to march down on protesters with armies of hundreds of cops and weapons and military gear when these protesters are unarmed. We need to demilitarize the police so that they literally don't have the means to disperse chemical agents.